Welcome to FE Fitness and to our third installment of our nutritional series. Today with me is James Cooper, our head of nutrition, alongside Vicky Hadley, one of our senior trainers here at FE Gym. Vicky Hadley just finished doing her first competition last year, and I think you completely fell in love, didn't you?
Yeah, definitely. I placed top 5. I'm going to keep going.
Amazing. Top 5 the first time around.
Yeah.
That's really good going. So after having gone through, I'm sure, quite a tight and very regulated dietary structure, getting ready for the competition, you must have so many questions just to refine the process to be that much more precise for your next season. So one of those questions, or the topic of questions today, is about carbohydrates, which is such a vague topic for many people. I'm hoping that through your questions that we can provide some insight and some light as to the idea and the concepts and understanding behind carbohydrates as a whole. So Vicky, please go ahead.
So shall I just kick off with what is a carb?
Very much so, yeah. Good question. So a carbohydrate is probably the most easily and readily available energy source of all 3 macronutrients that we consume. Those 3 macronutrients, again, are protein, fat, and carbohydrates. So unlike protein, carbohydrates would have 4 calories per gram in energy. Just about the difference between protein and carbohydrates is that they are far more easily metabolized, meaning that the energy is more available to the body. So I always call protein the macronutrient of life, and I refer to carbohydrate as the macronutrient of energy. So basically that fuels life itself. And generally that's what carbohydrates do to our cells. They wake them up, they make them more active, particularly the mitochondria if our bodies are healthy. So does that answer your question as to what the carbohydrates are?
I know many people say there's a good carb and there's a bad carb and a simple carb and a complex carb. What is the difference between them? Or is a carb just a carb?
Well, I think on a fundamental molecular level, glucose is glucose. So when it gets into your bloodstream and it's being metabolized, there's not much difference. The only thing that is different to a glucose molecule that we contain in sweet potato as opposed to a glucose molecule found in Haribo sweets would be the nutrient density that is packed around that glucose molecule, which would be the distinguishing difference between also monounsaturated and polysaturated based carbohydrates. So the more complex a carbohydrate would be in the structure, the more fiber makeup it generally would contain as well, and the harder the body would have to work in freeing up that energy source for metabolism. And alongside that increased molecular structure or the complex structure, generally is more nutrients found. So if you take sweet potato, it's quite more of a polysaccharide based carbohydrate, which contains a lot of carotene and a lot of vitamin A.
With Haribo is literally just...
Yeah, Haribo is just energy.
It's just energy, exactly. There's other nutrients go along with it with the more complex carbohydrates, exactly.
Very much so. I think James has been a powerlifter, a very, very good powerlifter, world renowned, as well as a very good Brazilian jiu-jitsu athlete as well. And throughout his career, he's not necessarily always only utilized brown rice as a source of carbohydrate.
And also exactly have quite a lot of white rice, as Justin sees as well.
And white rice, having James' understanding of carbohydrate, can be included into the diet, so long as you understand that other nutrients that have to be included with it for it to be beneficial. James, you want to give some examples?
Yeah, of course.
What I mean by that?
What I was saying was the difference between brown rice and white rice is with brown rice still contains the husk around it. And with white rice, also with polished rice, the husk is removed. So, as you said before, the husk around the rice contains other nutrients. So white rice in a certain way is just carbohydrates, it's just pure energy, whereas brown rice would have other nutrients. But when you're eating a meal, when we do any diet plans here at FE, you're never going to be eating just carbohydrates by itself in one meal. You're going to be eating it with some sort of protein source and some vegetables, some fruit. So the carbohydrate portion of our meals really is just energy. So when you're having brown rice, it contains more fiber than white rice, of course, because of the husk. But again, as I said before, when you're eating white rice with veg, you're getting the fiber from veg anyway. So if you prefer having white rice and you like the taste of it more, go ahead and have it. It's completely fine.
Just to add on what James is saying, normally what we used to do with our clients, having come from the city and not having had the best diets for many, many years, We start them off with a high-fat, lower carbohydrate diet for the purpose of introducing a lot of vegetables into the diet. Because with a diet that hasn't got a lot of carbohydrates available to it, you have to sustain the blood sugar with a good amount of nutrient density, as well as a good amount of fat concentration that's healthy for the body. Then once people start to eat vegetables, they actually start to enjoy the taste of vegetables. Now, once you start to introduce carbohydrates back into the diet, there's quite a lot more quantity of food a person has to consume on their plate to get the same type of calories out of that meal. So by adding a white rice to a vegetable source, which they have been used to eating for 3 weeks prior, following a high-fat, low-carbohydrate diet, gives them the ability to get those carbohydrates in without feeling completely bloated or completely frustrated with not getting the calories in, which could actually lead to a caloric deficit, which is not always what you want if your quest is for performance or hypertrophy muscle building.
Okay. So how many carbs should you eat a day, roughly?
Oh, it's massively dependent on the person. So the main thing to look at, obviously the first thing is the person's body weight, but the main thing we do at FE is we test their body fat as the first thing. So our in-body scanner, costs us £13,500, is within 1% accuracy of the DEXA scan, which is the most accurate, the gold standard.
Which costs £100,000.
It costs £100,000.
We wish.
Maybe one day.
A little bit over the budget, just a tiny bit.
One day, one day, hopefully.
We'll keep a separate room for
exactly, a separate room for take a huge DEXA scanner. But what we do is we test the body fat and the body composition on our scanner. So the reason why we test the body fat is to give them the correct type of diet. So somebody that has higher body fat, so a usual city worker, sedentary, sits at a desk, we need less carbohydrates and more fats. There's a reason for this I'm going to go into in a second. So body fat, adipose tissue, contains two hormones called TNF alpha and alpha resistin. So the higher body fat is, the more of these two hormones you'll produce. Does that make sense? Yeah. So what happens is, someone with high body fat, to produce more of these hormones, these two hormones, what they do is they reduce insulin sensitivity, which means so producing this hormone, you can tolerate carbohydrates less well. So what we first do is get their body fat down by putting them on a higher fat diet, a lower carbohydrate diet. Then once their body fat has dropped, then we'll reintroduce carbohydrates at the correct time.
Just in addition to that, James, a very important point to mention. Just as James said, insulin sensitivity would not enable someone to handle carbohydrate metabolism as well, which would mean an excess amount of blood sugar.
Exactly. So your blood sugar won't be able to get rid of the blood glucose.
Now, in relation to excess blood sugar, it also impairs your ability to process and metabolize proteins. So we were talking before about protein quantities and how much protein someone should get in opposed to someone else. Someone with a higher amount of blood sugar won't be able to readily process proteins effectively for the purpose of building muscle, but rather would have a negative effect of that protein becoming very pro-inflammatory. And that's not necessarily due just to the protein metabolism, but rather the inefficient carbohydrate metabolism. So that's...
So it's someone who's not... Quite a lot of people who come in here will be actually either type 2 diabetic or pre-diabetic, what's called metabolic syndrome. And they don't even know. They won't even have a clue. So they're eating these carbohydrates, feel like they're going to fall asleep. So quite often people that have high body fat will have poor insulin sensitivity. So they're going to be better with higher fats than carbohydrates right at the start. But once their body fat drops, then we can start adding carbohydrates in. So just a quick example, someone who's 10% body fat, lifting weights all day, and then putting them on a low carbohydrate diet, they're just going to end up losing muscle. So they'll be someone who needs more carbohydrates than an average office worker or somebody sedentary, right, Justin?
Most definitely, but also going back again, it also depends on the environment and the situation. An example for that is, yes, sure, if someone's trying to build muscle and they get to a certain percentage of body fat, which makes them more receptive to be able to handle carbohydrates or the nutrients, given carbohydrate. But that same person, for example, were to undergo some form of immune infection, whether it be a bacterial infection or some type of flu coming into the system, actually adding an abundance of carbohydrate in that point may not necessarily be beneficial to them, but rather shifting the diet to an abundance of vegetables, high in nutrient density, along with easily more complex, readily digestible protein sources like white fish or even some dairy sources that aren't aggravated by food sensitivities may be of benefit in that scenario. But it's very individualized as to a scenario, as to a person in a given time frame. And that's the biggest thing here that we're different from our competition, is that we look at a person in a specific time window we make up the plan, we retest that idea, that hypothesis, because it's only an hypothesis until you can actually have a clear understanding of all variables, which never truly really is because it's always constantly changing. But we try to make that plan as precise and adaptive as possible to what that person needs in that small period of time. Therefore, should you always have carbohydrates? I don't know. I'll have to test you and I'll have to see how you respond to it.
Okay.
Make sense?
Oh yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Becky.
No problem.